Inshallah, we'll get started. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa habibina maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Amma ba'd. So firstly, assalamu alaikum to everybody that is tuning in or will be watching this later. We are now covering juz number 15, and juz number 15 consists of Surah Al-Isra and Surah Al-Kahf. And so inshallah, I'm going to focus on just a few ayahs from Surah Al-Isra, starting from verse number 23. Before I do, I want to thank ISCJ for this opportunity and for implementing this really innovative idea of, getting Islam and more importantly, some of the tafsir to the people for this Ramadan, so they understand and comprehend what they're reciting when they're behind the Imam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. He says that we have decreed for you that you worship none but Allah, and that you have the most excellence of manners with your parents. And so it almost seems like they're two different fragments from two separate sentences. And on the one hand, Allah is saying that you worship Him, and this has been decreed, and no one else should be worshipped. And then all of a sudden, it's a complete change of an idea, and Allah says that you have to be excellent with your parents. And He's combined them and fused them into one single sentence. And what does this tell us? Very simply, is that it shows us the station and the maqam of where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers obedience to your parents. And so it's not just to say that you're going to do ihsan in the Arabic language is excellence in conduct, excellence in behavior. And so every single one of us has a capacity to be generous. We have a capacity to be kind. We have a capacity to be courteous. The best of that generosity, the best of that courtesy, the very highest of that kindness belongs to none other than our parents. They are the most that's deserving of that. Now, interestingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He refers to parents in two ways in the Quran. One is walid and walida, your father and your mother, and one is and ab. And so the question is then, what's the difference? What's the difference? Walid and walada is the general statement. It's the general vernacular for parents. And ab is a more graduated form of a mother and a father. And so in another part of the Quran, to illustrate what I'm talking about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ, that we have given a legacy, we have given instructions to mankind on how to deal with their parents. And then He says, his mother carries him. And you would think that He starts with وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ, that He would come, He would continue with walida, right? With walida, and He doesn't. He switches to And what the scholars of tafsir, what they said is that this suggests that the mother, when the baby is born, is already graduated to The mother has already contributed to the well-being of the baby because of the 9 months when the baby was inside of her. However, the father is only a walid at this point, and he does not graduate to an ab until he has contributed to the child's upbringing, till he has contributed to raising the child. And at that point, he is now graduated to the level of ab. And so this is a very important factor to distinguish, because when you're talking about Surah Al-Isra and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you have to show ihsan to your parents, He uses the words walidain, right? And that's saying that whether your father has contributed to your upbringing or not, if he left the country and he was not even a part of your upbringing, still you have to show him the best of your manners. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues, and He says that if you find them in their old age, one of them or both of them, that you cannot even utter the words uf, alif and fa. 2 letters. It's the smallest word in the Arabic language. And it's amazing that, we'll say more than just oof to our parents. We'll say entire paragraphs and sentences and essays to our parents to make our point, to show them that we're right. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, is that whatever it is that you want to come back with and be argumentative with your mother or father, all the things that they did for you, all those things that they did for you, you have no right. As a matter of fact, you can't even say oof. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where, very oft quoted, where he climbs the minbar and he says Ameen 3 times. And you guys, you all are probably very familiar with the hadith. He says Ameen 3 times. One of the reasons that he said Ameen was because Jibreel alayhi salam, he came to him and he says, "Cursed is he who meets the month of Ramadan and is not forgiven." Meaning that in the month of Ramadan, the doors of mercy are, swung wide open. That it is a complete travesty and tragedy that if somebody doesn't exert the effort to seek forgiveness in the month of Ramadan and is forgiven, then that's a complete tragedy. And so Jibreel alayhi salam commanded the Prophet ﷺ to say Ameen. The second part of this hadith, which also is relevant to us being in Ramadan and also taking care of our parents, is Jibreel alayhi salam then says, "Cursed is he who meets his parents in old age and he is not forgiven." Meaning that he didn't take care of his parents, or he treated them poorly. He treated them poorly, and so he's not forgiven. And cursed is this person, and Jibreel alayhi salam commanded the Prophet ﷺ to say Ameen, right? And so it tells us the station of our parents. As a matter of fact, the famous hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, who asked the Prophet ﷺ, "Who deserves the best of my conduct?" And the Nabi ﷺ, he said, "Your mother." And he asked again, and he said, "Your mother." And he asked again, and he said, "Your mother." And then finally he asked, and he said, "Your father." And it's not to say that your father is bologna sandwich or anything like that. But it tells you, and it really shows us what the importance and significance and level it is that our mothers play. And when we're inside of their wombs, those 9 months of suffering that they go through for us, and then even after that, right? You would think that they would have a break after these 9 months and the delivery is done. No, now you have to feed the child. Now you have to take care of them and change their diapers and all of these other things. It's right back to work. Some of us, we go to work, and if we get hurt and we take workers' compensation or short-term disability or whatever, we can take some time off from our work. The mother's work, her job, never stops. It just continues to go. And for the next 3-4 years, she's going to constantly be at it with that child until he enters school and she finally gets somewhat of a break. And then the other thing interesting to know, وَمَنْ نُعَمِّرْهُ نَكِّسُهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin that we reverse creation. Right, so you see that a baby, right, needs a lot of care and a lot of attention, and as it gets older, say the baby, the toddler drops some milk, and you say, oh, it's just a toddler, no problem, let's pick up the milk, we'll clean it up. And then as the child gets older, becomes a teenager, drops milk, you tell them go out to the grocery store and go get milk, right? The expectations get higher, and then as you get older, and go deeper in age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He reverses us in creation, so parents can almost become childlike, where they have more expectations from their children, and on the other side, they're becoming, more demanding. And so now we have to restrain ourselves even further. And so Allah is saying, when you find them in their old age, it's going to be a challenge for some of you, right? Because maybe your parents have that sort of personality. For a lot of sons, your father knows how to get under your skin and make it burn, right? And he knows you. He knows you sometimes better than you know yourself. And he might say these things that he knows is gonna, really put up your blood pressure, and you can't even say oof. And so there's a great story that illustrates this point, where, a father and his son, they go out to walk in a park, and the son is about 4 years old. And they're walking in a park, and the son looks at a tree, and he sees a crow, and he says, "Dad, what's that?" And the father says, "Oh, son, that's a crow." And again he says, "Dad, what's that?" And the father responds, "Son, that's a crow." And he says again, "Dad, what's that?" And the father again, he responds, "That's a crow." They go home. The father thinks it's extremely cute. He opens up his journal and he writes it down. Today we went to the park. My son asked me what a crow is 20 times, and I thought it was the cutest thing in the world. Years go by. The son moves out to the West Coast, and now he's this, upper management in a Fortune 500 company, and doesn't have a whole lot of time. And the father gives the son a call, and he says, "Son, I want to visit you. I haven't seen the grandkids in a long time. I want to come by and see you guys." And the son says, "Dad, I'm not going to have any time to entertain you or anything. Just if you want to come, come." He says, "All right, well, I'm coming at 7 a.m. Just, make sure you pick me up." The father flies over, and nobody comes to pick him up. And he's surprised. And he calls home. He says, "Dad, just take home, grab a taxi. When he gets to the house, I'll pay him. Just take a taxi home." So the father comes home to his son's house, opens the door, and says, "Assalamu alaikum," and they have breakfast and so on. So the father says, "Son, let's go take a walk in the park." And the son says, "Dad, I've got this project to finish. I don't have a lot of time." He says, "Come on, let's just go take a stroll in the park. It'll be a good break for you." So they go to the park, and they're walking together. And the father this time sees a crow in the tree. And he says, "Son, what's that?" And the son says, "Dad, it's a crow. I just sent you glasses last week. Is the prescription running out already? Come on, Dad." And then he says, "Son, what's that?" And he says, "Dad, it's a crow, and I'm not going to play these games with you anymore." And he says, "Son, what's that?" And he says, "Dad, that's it. I'm not talking to you. I'll see you at home." And the son marches off, and he, goes to his house and waits for his dad there. And the moral of the story is, it kind of goes to show you the temperament that we have with our parents. And, just to wrap it up in the last 2 minutes here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. He's like, he says what you should be doing is protecting your parents. And the imagery that's being painted is of a bird protecting its nest. It takes its most precious assets, its wings, and it protects its eggs and its young. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that's exactly how you should be protecting your parents. And in your quiet moments, you should be making dua for them. وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. That Allah is our Rabb, and He's our caretaker, and He is the one that cherishes us from moment to moment and allows us to exist from moment to moment. In a more mortal sense, our parents are the same way. And so we're making this dua, whether my mom is getting on my nerves or not, or whether my father says something that I didn't like. In our moments of silence, we go and we make these prayers and dua for our parents in every single dua, and it's being commanded to us. And so that's the station of the parents. And we're running out of time here. Let's take these last few minutes to make dua, because this is a time that's mustajib, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the dua of the people that call out to Him. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.